Hi and welcome to Rebirthing Woman, the podcast. I am Milena Büttinghausen. With this podcast, I invite you to breathe and connect so that you go out into this world and inspire others to do so too. This podcast is all about sharing inspirational stories and interviews with you to create a field in which you can access your deeper wisdom. I am so excited because in my very first episode, I interviewed Björkstén, a wonderful woman I met on a sacred pilgrimage in the Andes a couple of years ago. This episode is a journey where we delve into the deep layers of awakening and we talk about the sacred feminine path and all the different realms to which we have access to, but most of us have forgotten. Also, we talk about why it is so important to stay connected in our physical body and how we can embrace our shadow and transform it. Enjoy! Hi, Catherine. Thank you for being here. I wanted to interview you because I feel we have both a strong connection to Peru. That's how we met and
Yes.
where we met in the Andes. And I'm in your work. You work with the higher realms. You connect, so to speak, the worlds. And tell us a little bit more about what you do.
So thank you for having me. Well, it's interesting that we met in Peru because that's where everything started for me with connecting the worlds and moving between the worlds, really. When I arrived in Peru, something kind of really shifted in me the first time that I arrived in Cusco. It's almost like somebody put the key in the lock and opened the lock, and I had no idea what was behind the door and what that would unlock. So it's been quite a ride since. And one of the things that it has led me to is a bit of a shamanic path, and I think that word has been slightly overused in the spiritual community, and everybody wants to be a shaman. And it's funny because when you read about what happens in indigenous communities, the person who's kind of called to be the shaman is not exactly what people want to be called to, because they know that it's a really difficult path.
Mm-hmm.
And for us to be able to navigate between the worlds, I believe that we need to go through a certain initiation in our human form that is really quite difficult, because we need to be able to disassociate to a certain extent so that we can go into different realms. And usually disassociation comes through trauma, the learned behavior of disassociation. And I had my initiation in that and have still worked a lot with being able to be in different realms. But what I've really understood lately is that we need to be present in our human form. So there's a reason why we have a body, where we're not just dwelling in spirit. And the reason why is that we've come here to shift the consciousness to a higher level of consciousness and a higher vibration. So I believe that there's a group of people who have volunteered to do this. They usually are healers in different shapes and forms. And one of the things that really led me also to the more grounded approach to spirituality and navigating the worlds was when I started working with the sacred feminine. I started apprenticing in that a little over a year ago. And the feminine awakening is more of a descent than an ascent, whereas the masculine awakening is more of an ascent. Even just the way we relate to the chakra system, for instance, we've been taught that we start with the base and then we go to the sacral and then so on and so forth up until the crown chakra, and then we go up, whereas the more feminine way of opening the chakras would start actually with the crown, the top of the head, going all the way down to the base, and then give birth to whatever it is that we've come here to birth. So it's a slightly different approach to awakening. And I could really sort of see the value of the roots, because I was dwelling a lot in the upper realms and hanging out with spirit, and I got a lot distracted and started getting really ungrounded and was not very present in my daily life, which was an issue because I have 2 children. So they brought me back pretty quickly, also into the middle world, which is like the human realm, and also the realm of the elements. So everything that has form in the density of earth, in a way, is the middle world. So it can be the elements, it can be water, fire, earth.
Wow, that's so interesting. You shared so much information. Now I'm really curious. Can you tell us a bit more about the descent of the feminine? It's interesting what you say, because when we give birth, literally a human body comes out of our body, it descends. But has it to do with female qualities, that we're receptive and we're receiving kind of energy, and then we process it and we give birth to it? Tell us a bit more about that.
I think that's a good way of putting it, actually. I didn't think about that. That we're here to receive. That's really one of the feminine qualities, which is something that I think a lot of women find really difficult, because we live in a very masculinized femininity, because that's how we've survived. It's based on a patriarchal system, it is what it is. It's not going to war against the patriarchy. It's just now we're finding more of a balance between the genders, not being in a matriarchy or in a patriarchy. It's really finding the space where we can walk together and support each other and embody the awakened side of our gender. And so to go back to the feminine, the descent, what that helped me understand was the underworld, which is the world of the shadow and the world of the ancestors and the really sort of deep psyche also, and the world of the unconscious. And there's a reason why we have unconscious behaviors, and why we're not aware of them is because they're usually too painful to connect with. So our mind is very clever and finds these coping mechanisms so that we don't have to feel the pain. And the path of the feminine really, well, the apprenticeship started with a rebirth, a whole a month of rebirthing, and ending with a rebirthing ceremony, which was, so we're there in shamanic tradition or other indigenous traditions, they would say that we're born once through our physical mother, and then we're born a second time through the cosmic mother. And that's when we birth really our soul and who we truly are into being. And
this happens at the same time?
No, or is usually no. So you would be born into the physical body. I mean, maybe somebody would go through that. I haven't experienced that, and certainly not in the Western modern world. But we usually are called to sort of have the second birth through the cosmic mother, usually when we go a pretty big death. So it's the cycle of death and rebirth. Whenever we go through a huge sort of dark night of the soul, and we kind of come up against ourselves and see that how we've been operating, who we pretended to be through our conditioning, can't exist anymore. So we understand that we need to be going through a cycle of death, which usually is not super comfortable. And delving into the shadow, I think, is a very healthy and helpful way of transforming the aspects that we find are actually a hindrance, but they aren't. Like, our shadow really holds our greatest light and the information about who we truly are beyond that perceived idea of darkness. But if we look at, the cosmic mother and creation in general, there's no difference between total order and chaos. They both have, their value. And I think that that's a really important concept to look at, is integration, because I feel that that's where we're at as a human species. Like, we really are here to integrate the light and the dark and the masculine and the feminine. It's not so much about looking at healing only one aspect or the other. It's really bringing them together and see that there is no separation between these two, because we need both to evolve and to grow this consciousness.
So basically, you say, going back to the birth via the cosmic mother, it's kind of, we initiate ourselves in this physical world when we go through dark nights of the soul, through painful situations to go to look deeper.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we create, all these situations for ourselves so that we can awaken deeper. And that's where I think, in our modern society, certainly in the Western modern mind, we resist suffering so much. Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to go through, like the painful things, understandably, because it's hard and it's uncomfortable. And I think the further along the path we get and the more comfortable with, the underworld we get, we understand its value, we see the beauty of it. It's, sometimes we can have the realization that there is so much beauty in pain. When we go through something really, really hard, we can see the beauty in it. And so I believe that, we bring all these difficult situations, which are opportunities ultimately, into our lives. We create that based on the fact that we create our own reality. Yeah. And the most important thing, especially for anyone who is on a spiritual path or like a spiritual kind of warrior, or whatever you want to call it. Warrior has a bit of a negative connotation when it comes to like being at war with anything, but people who really are here to awaken deeply will create these situations for themselves. And that's something that I believe our souls have, chosen way before we've, taken a body. And getting comfortable with the concept of transformation and alchemy is really crucial. And that's letting go of an attachment to, like life should be like this. And we live in a society that is selling us happiness left, right, and center. And you should feel better about yourself, and you should feel bigger, better, more, whether it's a car or the newest yoga gear, whatever it is. Yeah. And there's a bit of a shift also going towards the spiritual as being another kind of band-aid for suffering.
And so what can help you embrace transformation or deal with suffering? Or you told me before we started recording that you also work with spirit guides. So what can you do if you catch yourself, wow, there's something I don't really want to feel, I don't really want to look at? What can support us to?
I think there are different levels we can delve into. So if you have a lot of time, or you're going through a major crisis, not that it's on one or the other, and sometimes they don't go together, but you have to make the space to move through whatever the crisis is. I always recommend nature, and I think we all have different ways of dealing with our difficult situations in life. For me, when I'm in nature, I deeply connect with the elements that are also an extension of spirit here on earth. And so a fire ceremony to burn away, for instance, something that needs to be released and transformed and sent back to spirit. I would work with the fire and work with, objects that I want to release and whatever they mean to me. Obviously cultivate a connection with the fire that I work with. And then the earth, being held by the earth, like simply lying on the earth. And I've cried so many times and wailed on the earth to just be held by her and just feel that grounding and that sense of, my body is safe here on earth. Because I think a lot of people who have like a certain energy signature that people would, kind of qualify as star seeds, or who have like a kind of a consciousness that is related to other star systems, usually complain about the fact that they don't feel safe on Earth and they don't feel like they belong here. And I think that especially if you hold that kind of vibration, it's so important to be close to the Earth. Work with the water, anything that is related to, sensitivity, emotions. Water is really powerful.
So this could practically be take a bath, or?
Yeah, you can definitely so I would have days where if I'm not in nature, and I live in London, so I don't have, always, the possibility to just go and reach out to nature. Like an Epsom salt bath is really good to also shift the energy and like cleanse. Take a shower, and also just, you can also call in the frequencies of these different elements and just ask for water to be with you and help you cleanse, or fire or earth or air. And so the different elements in nature are very supportive, and then you can start working with the elementals, so the different kingdoms, plant kingdom, animal kingdom, and just the different spirits that dwell in nature. So there are some people who relate to fairies or to other elementals, divas. And I think it's also important to find what connection we have and that really resonates, not because somebody's telling you that this is what you need to connect with, but really something that resonates. Like you and I, for instance, in Peru, when we've connected with the Apus, we really have that super deep connection.
Yeah, true.
And they're with me pretty much all the time, and especially if I start tuning in and I need their support, I can feel that deep resonance with them, and no matter where I am.
So could you say that the Apus or plant kingdom, crystal kingdom are different realms which exist next to this physical world, let's say, and they are part of us, and we have to find out to which one we really resonate and ask for guidance? Or like for somebody who has never heard about this, how would you explain all this interconnection of these different universes, let's say?
Yeah, so it's based like on a more animistic consciousness, based on the fact that all living beings have souls, and a living being can equally be a plant or a human being. So there is no difference. It's just like a different translation point for a spirit to manifest. So and that's not something that I can tell anyone to adhere to or not. It's like either people feel it or not. But usually if you go out in nature, I think that the majority of people feel a different energy field around them.
Yes.
And then start tuning in to aspects that might speak to them, and then it can be being drawn to crystals, for instance, or flowers, working with flower essences or essential oils, or working with resins and incense, just like using different things like sage or palo santo or whatever you need to clear your energy field. So it's all energy, that's the thing. So it's that's how I would explain it. It's just different resonances and different manifestations of spirit in form.
Okay. Okay, now we talked about how you can ask for assistance and guidance and clear yourself to gain clarity, and can you also use this to connect to your power? Or what are ways you can go deeper within yourself?
I believe that that's one of the best ways to connect to your power. So I think we have a tendency, I certainly do have a tendency, to rely on others for power. So through somebody else's validation, I will feel either empowered or not.
Oh, I can so relate. Yeah.
And I've come to a stage where I've had to really delve deep into myself, and still am, to find this power that is not rooted in anyone else's validation. So whether it's coming through me, but also one of the things that I know that I have found a great refuge in, and support more than refuge actually, is in the realm of spirit. And also cultivating that. It's like any relationship. It's like you can't expect somebody to be your best friend and somebody to really show up for you if you don't cultivate that relationship. I mean, there is unconditional love and this, that, and the other, but realistically, our relationships need to be maintained. And that's exactly the same with spirit. If we don't maintain and cultivate that relationship, it doesn't grow and strengthen. And that's what I've been going through for the past 3 months, and especially the past couple of months, is I need to cultivate this relationship so that I can really have a genuine and strong relationship with spirit. So now it's coming more. It's ironic because I've been working with this for a while, but it's really like the penny has dropped really clearly now in terms of how spirit can support me in my daily life and also in the work that I do. And that is something that I believe is just an experiential acquired wisdom. You can't like tell somebody that this is how it's going to feel and this is what it's going to look like. It's just by experiencing spirit that you will create that relationship, because you will understand that it's there and it's supporting you. And by spirit, I mean whatever shape or form that takes. So it can be, as I said, either, like the more middle worldly elementals, animal spirits, and all of this. You can go more into the underworld and, the Black Madonna and different sort of dark goddesses, and really go deep into like cave-like type of energies. Or you can go also more in the upper world, which is more star kind of related, and it's more etheric and more flowy and more refined, and then find different guides also in those realms. So it really is taking the time. My practice now is every single day I sit and connect. So it depends on what I'm with that I bring into my meditation that I'll gain clarity on that. So it can be a middle world related thing, it can be an underworld, it can be an upper world, it can be all of them. But it is having that consistency that I think that is really important if we want to create an alliance with spirit. And that's where I have found a lot of strength, because whatever I've been doing up until now, I've had to shift some ways of relating to spirit and to energy and to people and to life in general. I just had to.
Yeah, it feels like from my experience that it has to do with surrender and opening up, that I let go of control. Because in my experience, I used to try to manage my whole life and to do everything perfect, until I realized I cannot. I'm unhappy, I don't know what to do, and I literally had this moments where I thought I cannot, I don't know what to do. And in that moments of surrender, I opened up and said, like, people start to pray, I don't know if there's a God or if there's a universe or if there's spirit, but I need help and I ask for guidance. So I feel it has a lot to do with acknowledging that I'm not alone here on earth, and that I have support, and then I can call in whatever appears to me. So interesting.
And I think it's also really important that we don't only dwell in the spirit realms, that we also work with the people who are around us. So for instance, starting to doing like offering women's circles is something that has been with me for a long time, and I finally started offering them. And that's a space and an energetic kind of like space that is created for people to really sort of support each other, not to fix each other, not to like go into therapy sessions and like these lengthy kind of analysis moments and all of this, but a genuine kind of connection between kind of like-hearted souls who want to support each other going through something that they can relate to each other. And I think people are always called to a circle, to a retreat, to whatever dynamic, whatever relationship it is, because they will create a field of itself with these other people, and that field has a life of its own, and it's not individual, but it is equally important as our individual experience. So I think any kind of physical practice also is really supportive. So staying in our bodies, whether it's through dance, yoga, working out, walking, like movement is really essential as well, so that we really reconnect with the strength of our body and the strength of our connection to earth. Like it's really kind of the lower chakra based kind of energy, so base, sacral, and solar plexus. And when we work on those, we'll feel safer also on earth and in our bodies.
And this is when we move our bodies, when we connect to other people, and not only delve into the how do you say, vertical dimension,
Yeah.
calling in. Okay, yeah, it's true. You can get lost in, okay, I have to call my guides and then
and just be there.
be there. Yeah.
So really finding also the support on earth with people who you resonate with, who you feel that you can safely be who you truly are with. And you know, when we go through these transitions, I find that people fall away from our lives, and whether it's, you know, work relationships or friends or primary relationships, when we go through these big transformations, usually there is also a transformation that happens in those, because the frequency is not aligned anymore between you and work, or you and your partner, or which doesn't mean that, you know, it needs to be the end of a relationship or of a career or anything, but something needs to change to continue, that's for sure. Yeah. And
one last question, maybe because it's a lot of information, and I wonder how do you work with clients? Do you work in nature? How do you connect all these different aspects of stepping into your power?
I haven't offered any, well, a little bit in nature. I do retreats in Glastonbury, and we work with the land there, actually. So that's one big thing that I find is really important, is to work with the land and sacred sites. Usually sacred sites hold a certain bank of information that activates in us when we go to the places that call us. So there is a remembering that is created. So it might be gifts, it might be something that we need to remember in terms of our soul imprint, and it could be past life memories that might explain something in our current life that we need to shift or that we need to integrate. And just like, yeah, working with the land is really important. And as you know, like when we've been to Peru, it's been the same. Like the land is a huge part of the process. I do one-to-one sessions also, either via Skype or in London. And those obviously integrate less nature. One of the things that I always do is that I open a space with spirit before I start a session, and I ask for their support to really sort of offer whoever I work with what they need, and for me to be the clearest channel for them to hear what it is that they need to hear, and for them to also be receptive. I usually ask people to refrain from, you know, having too much stimulants before a session, so that they can be grounded and present. I also work with, I do quite a lot of journeying with people, so people can also call that guided meditation. So taking people into more subconscious places where they can address something on a level that is not so mind related. So it usually would be soul to soul conversations, higher self aspects, and then whatever guidance and whatever guides step in will work with them, and I just hold, you know, like I guide them. It's a journey basically, and that has proven to be really efficient for people to shift, you know, subconscious behavior, and that has been very much guided by spirit the whole process. And I recommend, you know, shadow work, and I don't do any myself, but I know good practitioners who do that. And so I also offer different practitioners and different practices to people, so that they're not just dependent on, you know, whatever session I'm doing with them. I offer a very holistic kind of approach. Then there's the feminine work, which I'm going more and more into with the circles, and starting to work on one-to-one sessions also to do womb awakening. And that might include different body practices, body prayers, not being so much in the mind and in the story. It can be...
if there was one practical advice for all the women out there, which they could do every day to connect to their womb, what would you tell them?
I would literally say, and I do that myself actually every day, is that when I sit and meditate, I always connect with my womb space. And if it helps, just put your hands in your womb and breathe into it. And the other thing is, like, our physical womb holds a direct replica of the cosmic womb. So we are creator, and that's it's not a small thing. And our wombs, our physical wombs, are connected directly to the cosmic womb, but also to the earth womb. So we're kind of like this bridge between these two incredible forces of the feminine that support us. And if you can just, like, if you're fairly visual, you can visualize a filament of golden light that goes from your physical womb into the womb of the earth, and also one that goes from your physical womb into the cosmic womb. And really feel into those alignments. And if you feel that there's, maybe an aspect of your womb that you might feel more connected to earth and the element of earth, because one of the things is also in our womb we hold the 4 elements. We hold the earth, the fire, the air, and the water. And depending on how we embody these different elements in our womb, that will also come across as how we relate to life. So for somebody who's, lacking in earth, it would be less grounded, and that will have different, consequences and choices. And with air, it's if you have too much air, you might be ungrounded, but if you don't have enough air, it will be very practical, very structured kind of life, disconnected from spirit. So basically, if we can connect with the 4 elements that are in our womb, and the earth is at the bottom of the womb, and then in our right ovary we hold fire, and in the top of our womb we have air, and then in our left ovary we hold water, and in the middle of it all is the cosmic womb. And usually when we enter that space, there's the womb awakening, which is a womb. It's just connecting with creator, basically.
Amazing. So before you connect to all the elements in your physical womb, and then you start to draw the connection to the womb and Mother Earth and in the cosmic.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. While you were talking through this, I could literally feel my womb opening up. Wow. That's amazing.
So those are little practices, and I think, it's a lot about how we show up for ourselves, also how we connect with our power. If we're the first person we need to show up for, and then we start building our power, or our confidence or our strength on that, because we know that we can trust ourselves, and that's where it really starts, in my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you, Catherine, so much. So
you're welcome.
How can people get in touch with you?
So my website is Akasha Awakening, so that's AKASHA-awakening.com.
I will put it in the show notes anyway. Okay.
And that's the best way of getting in touch. And then you can also find me on Facebook. You can add me on Facebook, Catherine Björkstén. And if you're in London, I'm doing a talk on the 1st of April on the archetype of the sacred fool. And I have a retreat coming up in Glastonbury on between the 19th and the 21st of April. So you can stay tuned with all of this and sign up to my newsletter on my website also.
Great. Yeah, I will put the information as well.
Thank you, Milena. It was lovely to connect with you here and offering this space to share all of this.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.